everyone, I'm Talia. I'm a developer advocate at Split, and I create content around feature flagging, testing in production, and experimentation.
Hey everyone, my name is Alphonso and I'm on the customer success team at Split. I'm responsible for supporting our customers as they adopt feature flagging and experimentation at Split. So today we are hoping to share varying perspectives of what it means to implement the best practice of testing in production, right? So one from a customer success perspective and one from an engineering and implementation perspective. The hope is here that regardless if you are an existing customer with Split or not, you guys can walk away with actionable insights as to how to help your organization adopt the best practice of testing in production.
So the main benefits that someone should expect from testing in production is that it will increase your release cadence and go to market. So you're going to be increasing much more frequently. You'll also have an increased confidence in your releases because you're going to know that your features are going to be working ahead of time in the correct intended environment. And you're going to establish operational savings as you slowly eliminate lower test environments.
Thanks, Talia. So I guess I can start with, when I first meet a new customer and we help them get ramped up, some of the most common use cases that they present to us with respect to feature flagging is either kind of a simple on and off switch, right? We're using Split to expose a new feature to a certain subset of our customers, and we'd like to monitor how they react. Or they want to leverage Split to control the granularity of their releases, right? So, for example, our customers will be in a position where they can say, all right, I'd like to do a slow rollout of this new feature to only 5%, 10%, and then 25% of our traffic. And then for the lesser known use case, but just as impactful, is the idea of testing in production, right? So Talia, if you can kind of just help us understand what it really means to test in production and what that encompasses.
Yeah, so testing in production means testing in the environment that your features will live in. So it means not using a dummy environment like staging or QA or something like that. And again, the benefits include proactive testing. So I don't want to wait until a feature breaks, have the user report it to me, and then fix it. I want to know what's going on ahead of time and fix anything that's wrong before the user ever sees anything wrong. It also gives you increased developer velocity because your developers are going to spend more time creating new features and less time fixing production issues. You're going to have more releases because you're going to be releasing more frequently, and you're going to have a better user experience because you're not shipping bugs.
Okay, so when we do have customers that kind of understand the high level value prop of testing in production, right, and when they start to take on this initiative, sometimes we'll be met with a few challenges, right? And surprisingly, those challenges are not so much technical, but more so cultural, and our ability to help impact change management, right? So for example, I've heard customers say, hey, Split, we're not quite at that point yet because one, the team does not feel comfortable releasing to production without QA, or our release process has been this way for quite some time and it's going to be difficult to alter or rebuild. And then just like a general lack of confidence and understanding some of the long-term benefits of testing in production.
Yeah, so you are still doing QA, you are still testing when you're implementing testing in production. So some of the things that you can do are that you can implement a canary release, which means you're only going to end up affecting a small percentage of your user base in case something goes wrong. You can also run an AA test to increase your confidence in the feature flagging platform first. And it's a really good idea to start with smaller features, things that are a bit less complex, so that you can increase your confidence in the feature flagging platform. And this is easy to implement in Split. So these are some of the things that I suggest to mitigate those risks.
Nice. All right. So I think it'd also be helpful for some of the folks that will be watching this video if I just asked you some of the common questions or points that existing customers have brought up today in their discovery process for testing in production, right? So for example, they want to understand, hey, like what are the most common misconceptions that new customers or teams will have around testing in production?
So the most common misconceptions that people have are that you only test in production. So there's a scope that testing in production fits into, and when you think about the scope of all of your tests and then you think about where testing in production fits into there are tests that are not run in production due to data and privacy issues and like GDPR and SOX compliance. And then another misconception is that when you're testing in production, you're releasing without testing. And that's what feature flags do. They provide this kind of bubble between who you target in the feature flag and who's not targeted in the feature flag. So it allows you to test with the people who are in the feature flag and then release the feature to everyone else once you're done testing. So with this extra layer of protection from feature flags, you're really able to give your users the best possible experience.
And kind of to tack onto that, why do you think companies and engineering organizations are hesitant to test in production?
I think because they don't have the right tooling to properly support it. So they don't have feature flags and they don't understand the process of how to use feature flags. And also it just comes with fear. Like testing in production is a pretty scary topic. If you don't know how to implement it correctly, it can have some pretty bad effects on your system. But if you're using the right tools, if you're using everything safely, then it can have a really great impact.
Thanks, Talia. One of the other questions that we'll get from time to time, seeing is how we're bringing on more customers that, this is a bit of a buzz phrase, but we're bringing on more customers that are data driven, right? So they want to be able to differentiate, all right, well, what is the difference between test data from real data in production, and then why is that important?
Okay, so the best way to differentiate test data from real data in production is to use a Boolean for all of your test users. So what this means is that if I log in as a test user in production, the user that I use to log in is going to have a Boolean attached to it. And this Boolean is going to say, is test user is equal to true, or is test is equal to true. And then for everyone else who's not a test user, that's automatically set to false. So then in my Datadog dashboard or my Looker dashboard, wherever I'm collecting data, I can say, I only want to see the data for users whose is test user Boolean is set to false, because then I know that it's a real person in production performing these events. And this is really important because you want to make business decisions and reporting, to have like good reporting that's based on real user data, not from test data.
That makes sense. I guess along the lines of that previous question, what if something breaks in production, right?
Yeah. So if you're using a canary release, again, only a small population is going to be affected, so you can roll back that canary release. If you're not using a canary release, you can use the kill switch option provided by Split by your feature flagging platform, and that's just going to shut off the feature immediately just with the push of a button.
Okay. All right, so we're kind of covering all the bases here. So if we were to give the folks watching kind of a good first step to enable this practice of testing in production, right? What would those first steps be?
Okay, so the first step is to have the right mindset. So make sure that you're open to the idea of testing in production and that your team is open to this idea. And then the next step would be to install all of the necessary tools. So that would include feature flagging. You need to make sure you have an automation framework in place. You need to have a job scheduler to run your tests. And you need to have an alerting tool that can be integrated with your job scheduler. And then with your feature flagging platform, make sure that you target your internal teammates in the feature flag, test the feature only with them, and then release it through a canary release once you're done testing.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, Talia.
Yeah, so I hope that we provided actionable insights for your team in your discovery process to adopt testing in production. And so I just want to share like a summary of everything that we learned today. So the first thing is implementing feature flags with canary releases provide you with the necessary risk mitigation for testing in production. And two, your team has to want to test in prod. It has to be a culture shift that comes from the bottom up.
Thanks, Talia. That was kind of a very content jam-packed in a very short amount of time. So for those of you that would like to, you can always run a preliminary test with a free account at split.io. Also, if you guys have any follow-up questions from here, please feel free to send a note to support at split.io. And more likely than not, Talia will be the one answering any questions or providing guidance around testing and production in that ticket. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.